Picture this. You're sitting in your living room, maybe reading a book or watching a show.
Just minding your own business.
Exactly. And suddenly, the doorbell rings. In about 2 seconds flat, the entire atmosphere of your house completely changes.
Oh, yeah, absolute chaos.
Right. You have a Samoyed, and instantly they are at the door. They're spinning. They're doing that talking thing.
That unmistakable melodic yelling.
Yes, the loud melodic yelling. They're pulling toward the entryway. Their tail is held high up over their back, and I swear that bright white coat is practically glowing with this intense electric excitement.
It is a massive, sudden surge of kinetic energy. I mean, it just takes over the entire space.
And you, as the listener, you really have to ask yourself, when you look at that dog, what do you actually see?
Right, because perception is everything here.
Is this pure joyful exuberance? Or is this just a genuine bit of chaos? Because depending on who is standing on the other side of that door, one visitor might see a dog that is just overflowing with happiness.
And another visitor sees a dog that is completely and utterly out of control.
Exactly. And that specific scene is exactly why we are plunging into our source material today. We're doing a deep dive into the incredibly complex behavior and trainability of the Samoyed.
And I think it's important to state our mission for today right up front.
Definitely. Our mission today isn't to figure out how to take this vocal, highly social, fiercely independent creature and somehow turn it into a quiet, obedient, perfectly silent robot.
Because trying to force a Samoyed to be something, it's not, well, it always backfires. Spectacularly.
Spectacularly. Okay, let's unpack this, because what we are really talking about today is essentially a masterclass in understanding motivation.
Absolutely. It's so much bigger than just dog training.
It really is. The insights we're going to pull from this deep dive are profoundly applicable to you, whether you are actively training a working breed or trying to understand a strong-willed toddler, or even if you're just fascinated by the underlying mechanics of canine psychology.
Right. Because to understand that spinning, barking chaos at the front door, we first have to take a look inside this dog's incredibly active brain.
We have to dismantle the stubborn myth.
Yes, the
Right.
stubborn label. It is so pervasive with this breed, and it really just comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding of canine intelligence.
People assume that because the dog isn't instantly snapping to attention, right?
Right, like flawlessly executing a command the way a border collie or a German shepherd might, they assume the dog somehow lacks brain power.
But the source material is crystal clear on this distinction between intelligence and biddability.
They are genuinely intelligent, highly capable learners. I mean, they easily pick up house manners, daily routines, leash skills, polite greetings.
I do struggle with this concept a bit, though.
How so?
Well, if my dog looks me right in the eye, clearly hears my command, and then simply walks away, my human brain instantly codes that as defiance.
Of course it does. That's how we're wired to perceive it.
If they are so smart, why do they actively resist doing what we ask? It makes me think of, like a brilliant student in a classroom.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Right. If you take a kid who already completely understands the math lesson and you make them write the exact same equation on a chalkboard 100 times in a row, they aren't going to look brilliant anymore.
Yeah, they're going to tune out.
Exactly. They stare out the window and maybe start throwing erasers.
And that analogy perfectly illustrates how this breed views repetitive, dull obedience drills. You have to remember their history.
The sledding history.
Right. A border collie was bred to take continuous direction from a shepherd. A Samoyed was bred to pull a sled across dangerous ice.
Which means they had to make their own choices.
Precisely. They often had to make independent survival decisions regardless of what the human on the sled actually wanted. So when an owner drills the same sit command over and over with no real payoff, the dog evaluates the situation.
And they just disengage.
Yes, it isn't an inability to learn. It is a complete lack of interest in a task that feels entirely pointless to them.
So the dog is basically performing a cost-benefit analysis in real time.
Exactly that. What looks like stubbornness is usually genuine independence combined with low motivation in that specific moment.
Or maybe they're just distracted.
It could be distraction, yeah, or unclear criteria from the human. The human thinks they're being perfectly clear, but the dog has no idea what the actual rules are.
Because the rules keep changing.
Right. And this is exactly why harsh correction or forceful training methods fail so miserably with them.
Because a dog performing a cost-benefit analysis will just see a harsh, unpredictable owner as a liability.
Exactly. It completely damages trust. They do not respond to force, they respond to fairness.
So what is the consequence if the owner is just incredibly inconsistent with the rules? Like if they let the dog jump on the sofa on Tuesday, but yell at them for it on Wednesday?
What's fascinating here is that if an owner is inconsistent, a highly intelligent, independent dog, like a Samoyed, will simply invent its own patterns to fill the gap.
Because nature abhors a vacuum.
And so does a working dog. If you don't provide a clear, predictable structure, they will literally write the rule book themselves.
And you are probably not going to like the rules the dog chooses.
No, you definitely won't.
Which brings us to the most obvious tool the dog uses when it invents its own rules to get what it wants.
Oh,
Its voice.
Oh yes, the vocalizations.
When an independent dog decides to run the house, it is not subtle. The Samoyed vocal range is just wild. We are talking about barking, howling, that very distinct talking sound, whining.
And all sorts of dramatic grumbling.
Yes, the grumbling. But those vocalizations are complex communication tools, right?
They really are. The sources point out that these sounds stem from very different root causes. A sharp bark might be alerting you to a delivery driver outside.
While a high-pitched whine could just be them bubbling over with excitement.
Exactly. But very often, that dramatic grumbling and barking directed right at you, that is a learned pattern. It is demand behavior.
Okay, let me set up a scenario for you.
Sure, go for it.
Say you're working from home.
Mm-hmm.
You're on a critical Zoom call with your boss. Your Samoyed walks up, nudges your elbow, grabs your sleeve, and starts dramatically grumbling at you.
Classic.
And you just need 5 minutes of peace to finish this meeting, so you grab a treat or maybe a puzzle toy from your desk, and you just toss it to him.
Oh, boy.
Have you just successfully negotiated with a fluffy terrorist?
Well, you've negotiated, but the dog is absolutely the one who walked away with the victory there.
Yeah.
We really have to look at the underlying mechanics of intermittent reinforcement here. You always have to ask what the sound or action is doing for the dog.
So by tossing that treat, I just taught the dog that nudging and grumbling produces food and entertainment.
Exactly.
But I just need 5 minutes of peace. I mean, it's just a one-off survival tactic for my workday.
And that one-off survival tactic is exactly what creates the absolute strongest behavioral loops.
Wait, really? The strongest?
Yes. If a dog barks and gets a treat every single time, they learn the rule. But if they bark and get a treat only sometimes, like when you happen to be on an important call, it becomes a slot machine.
Oh, wow. So they just keep pulling the lever.
They will try the behavior even harder and longer because they know the jackpot pays out eventually.
So the human has essentially been trained to dispense treats on command.
Precisely. To dismantle this, you have to look at the entire household ecosystem. You have to reward calm settling before the frustration even builds.
And I imagine that requires total whole household consistency.
Total consistency.
Meaning if I ignore the demand barking, but my partner gives in and hands over a piece of cheese just to quiet the dog down, the slot machine stays plugged in.
One person's inconsistency will keep the behavior alive forever. It can't just command a working breed to be quiet.
Right, you have to redirect that massive working dog energy before the demand behavior even starts.
Exactly.
Which brings us to a huge hurdle with this breed. Underneath that fluffy white coat is an engine literally built to pull sleds across the frozen tundra.
An incredible engine.
But reading through our sources, there's a really vital distinction being made here. If I have a sled dog, my first instinct is that I need to run them for 5 miles a day. Are you saying I shouldn't be running my Samoyed?
I'm saying physical exercise is only half the equation, and honestly, if you rely on it exclusively, you are going to create a monster.
A monster.
Yes, they need physical movement, absolutely. But mental enrichment is what actually settles their nervous system.
So we're talking about scent games, food puzzles, impulse control games, trick training.
All of that.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if you just focus on the physical side, you basically create a super athlete without an off switch.
Exactly.
The sources emphasize that a physically exhausted but mentally unchallenged dog is a nightmare. It is exactly like a human who just drank 6 shots of espresso and then ran a marathon.
That is the perfect analogy.
Right. They're physically drained, their muscles are heavy, but their brain is still buzzing. They're hyper-vigilant and anxious.
Because a Samoyed doesn't just need to be tired, it needs to be satisfied.
Satisfied, yeah.
And if we look at physical exercise, we really have to talk about how you're actually walking this dog. Leash pulling is a monumental issue with this breed.
Oh, I've seen that. People get incredibly frustrated because the dog is practically choking itself, dragging them down the sidewalk. It looks like it's trying to tow a semi-truck.
It's very common.
Why is it so hard to teach them a loose leash walk?
It comes down to a biological mechanism called the opposition reflex.
Opposition reflex.
Yeah. When you pull backward on a dog's collar or harness, their instinct is to lean forward and pull harder against the pressure.
Oh, so it's a reflex, not them just being stubborn.
Right. And for a sled dog, that forward drive is deeply, deeply genetic. Furthermore, pulling is self-reinforcing.
How so?
Well, if the dog pulls and you step forward, the dog just learned that pulling gets them closer to the interesting tree or the squirrel.
So the environment itself is rewarding the bad behavior.
Exactly. To break that cycle, you have to change the actual mechanics of the walk. You utilize safe equipment, like a properly fitted harness that doesn't restrict their shoulders.
And then what?
You practice absolute consistency with stops and turns. The moment tension hits the leash, forward motion stops, period.
That must require immense patience from the owner.
It really does. But it teaches the dog that a loose leash is the absolute only accelerator pedal.
And if you don't provide that structure and you don't provide mental enrichment, they will just find their own outlets.
Oh, they definitely were.
Outlets like chewing the baseboards or excavating the entire backyard.
Digging is a profound instinct for this breed. And they aren't just doing it to be destructive.
No.
No, the sources actually note they often dig specifically to remove the sun-baked topsoil. They want to lie in the cooler dirt underneath because of their extreme heat sensitivity.
That makes a lot of sense. But chewing is another common outlet, right?
It is. And sudden destructive chewing in an adult dog isn't always just boredom. It could signal anxiety, a disrupted routine, or even physical illness.
Which is so interesting. And that intense need for engagement, that massive energy, it doesn't just vanish when you leave the house.
Not at all.
Which introduces a massive point of tension for this breed isolation. Their social lives are incredibly complex, whether they are left completely alone or surrounded by a chaotic family.
We really need to look at the alone time first. Separation distress is a massive hurdle with Samoyeds.
Because they are deeply people-oriented dogs.
Exactly. Historically, they were bred to sleep huddled with their human families for warmth in sub-zero temperatures. Isolation is fundamentally unnatural to them.
So taking a puppy and suddenly locking them in a room alone for 8 hours can induce genuine physiological shock.
It really can. You have to build up their tolerance to being alone very gradually, literally in increments of minutes.
The text explicitly warns that true panic, drooling, destroying the doorframe, nonstop frantic vocalizing should never be punished. But it's so hard for an owner to come home to a destroyed door and not just get angry.
It is incredibly frustrating, yes. But you have to understand the mechanics of what just happened in the dog's brain. That isn't spiteful misbehavior.
It's a panic attack.
Exactly. It is a full-blown fight-or-flight panic response. Their cortisol levels have completely skyrocketed.
So punishing a dog for a panic attack is basically like yelling at someone for having a phobia.
That's a perfect way to put it. It just confirms the dog's fear that being left alone is a terrible, terrifying event.
Okay, so that's the risk when they are alone. But what about when the house is full of people?
That brings its own set of challenges.
Right. The sources detail managing visitors, requiring the dog to keep 4 paws on the floor to prevent jumping. And the rules for kids in the house with a Samoyed are intense.
Very strict rules are needed.
No pulling coats, no chasing the dog into a frantic state, no disturbing them when they sleep, no rough hugging.
Yes, all of that is crucial.
If this breed is known for being so incredibly friendly and social, why do we need to build such a rigid fortress of rules around kids and visitors?
This raises an important question about what it actually means to protect a dog's good nature. We have this huge tendency to project human emotions onto canine body language.
Like thinking a hug is universal.
Exactly. A child hugging a dog feels incredibly affectionate to us, but to a dog, a hug is a physical restriction.
And in the animal kingdom, being restrained triggers panic.
Right. A Samoyed might be incredibly tolerant, but they are still a large animal with a nervous system that can easily be pushed into a state of over-arousal.
So by setting rigid rules for the kids, like leaving the dog alone when it's on its bed, you're ensuring the dog always has an escape route.
And that they always feel safe in their own home. That fundamental safety is what actually keeps them friendly.
Structure creates safety, and safety creates a calm dog. And this management extends outside the human family, right? Like right into the broader animal world.
Yeah.
Because taking a highly energized Samoyed to a chaotic dog park seems like it could definitely backfire.
Oh, dog marks can be a massive sensory overload. A high arousal Samoyed bursting into a group of strange dogs can easily trigger defensive reactions from the other dogs.
There can also be same-sex tension.
There can. And we absolutely must address prey drive.
Right, the cats and the small pets.
So a trusted household cat that the dog has been socialized with from puppyhood often just becomes part of the family pack.
But an unknown cat running across the yard.
That triggers an ancient chase sequence.
Yeah.
And small pets, rabbits, guinea pigs, birds, they must be actively protected with physical barriers.
And the sources highlight that utilizing this kind of management isn't a failure of your training.
Not at all. You cannot train the predatory sequence out of a dog. Managing the environment is just responsible ownership.
Let's assume you do everything right. You have the boundaries, you're doing the mental enrichment, the kids aren't hugging the dog, the loose leash training is finally working.
A perfect setup.
But then, on a random Tuesday, your dog's behavior suddenly goes completely off the rails. They start vocalizing differently, they snap when you try to put the harness on, they completely refuse to walk.
That's a red flag.
The source material points out that the answer to this sudden behavioral mystery is often hidden right under their coat.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture of canine psychology, we really have to look at the concept of trigger stacking.
Trigger stacking.
Yeah, so a dog might tolerate a noisy house, and they might tolerate a slightly warm day. But if you add a hidden physical pain to those existing stressors, the dog's nervous system reaches a tipping point.
And for a Samoyed, because of that dense double coat, grooming is not a cosmetic luxury.
It is a fundamental healthcare skill.
We are talking about brushing down to the skin, paw handling, nail care, ear checks, mouth handling. The dog has to be trained to cooperate with all of this.
Because if you can't touch the dog, you can't assess its health. A mat of fur isn't just an ugly tangle. It actively pulls the skin with every single step the dog takes.
Ouch.
Right. It can alter their gait, causing joint pain, or hide severe hot spots and skin infections.
So if you see sudden resistance to grooming from a dog that used to be totally fine with it, or if they are suddenly avoiding exercise, you shouldn't just assume it's a sudden training regression.
Exactly. You're saying the bad behavior is actually a symptom. Behavior is very often the absolute first place that physical discomfort becomes visible to us.
It could be a dental issue.
Or, incredibly common with this breed, heat irritability. A dog that is perpetually too warm is going to be cranky, restless, and uncooperative.
Their thermal regulation basically dictates their mood.
It really does.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out and look at this entire ecosystem, the need for boundaries, the mental enrichment versus just physical exhaustion, the massive grooming commitment, the vocal nature, the thermal management, who is this dog actually for?
The sources conclude that a Samoyed can absolutely be a wonderful fit for a first-time owner.
Really? First-time owners?
Yes, but that is contingent on the owner being willing to do the actual work. You have to commit to learning the grooming mechanics, providing the daily mental exercise, and holding firm on boundaries.
But it will break down completely for an owner expecting a plug-and-play pet.
Oh, 100%.
If someone wants a naturally silent, low-maintenance, perfectly obedient creature that can just be left alone in an apartment for 10 hours a day, this is a recipe for mutual misery.
If you want a dog that requires zero effort and has no independent thoughts, a working breed is simply not for you.
The barking, spinning Samoyed at the door that we started this discussion with, that dog isn't broken.
Not at all.
That behavior isn't inherently bad. It is a bright, vocal, working animal that simply requires a relationship strong enough to make cooperation worthwhile. We aren't trying to dim their voice. We are trying to guide their mind.
Guiding the mind. I like that. It's about rhythm, engagement, and building habits that protect the dog year after year.
And when you are trying to figure out if a sudden behavioral shift is a training regression or a hidden health issue, tracking all these variables like grooming schedules, exercise routines, vet visits, it becomes a whole lot to juggle.
It really is a lot of data.
That's where tools like the Vital Pet app come into play. It's an incredibly helpful platform for organizing health records, care routines, and medications all in one place. We've actually put the downloads link for you right in the description of this deep dive.
And of course, as always, we must remind you that this deep dive is for educational purposes only. If you are ever concerned about your dog's health or sudden, unexplained changes in their behavior, you should always consult a qualified veterinarian.
Absolutely. As we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a philosophical question to mull over.
Oh, I love these.
We spend so much time, energy, and money trying to train what we call bad behaviors out of our working dogs, the alerting, the digging, the chasing, the pulling against the leash.
Right, the things that annoy us.
But if you really look at the mechanic of these actions, they aren't flaws. They are ancient, highly tuned survival instincts. They are the very traits that kept these animals alive in some of the harshest, most unforgiving environments on Earth.
Which really forces us to look at our own environment.
It does. When that doorbell rings and your dog explodes into a spinning, barking, chaotic display of energy, ask yourself, what does our modern frustration with these natural behaviors say about us?
That's a profound thought.
What does it say about how disconnected our quiet, indoor, highly controlled human lives have become from the raw, vibrant reality of the natural world? Maybe the dog at the door isn't the one who is out of place.
Something to think about the next time you hear that bark.